And we have fourth quarter earnings results from Prairiesky Royalty after the bells. And you can see average royalty production missed estimates. It increased by about 3.9% year over year. When it comes to revenue, also missed estimates, down 18% year over year. And earnings per share also missed estimates. The company does say, though, that it's increasing its annual dividend to $1.06 per share. And of course, we don't have an after hours graph. So what you're seeing right now, that's where it closed for the day. Let's bring in Jeremy McCrae, Managing Director and Energy Research at BMO Capital Markets, to kind of break down what we're seeing here. It's good to have you join us. Thanks so much. I'm wondering what your takeaways are here from what we're seeing in this earnings report.
Yeah, so some of the first numbers that you mentioned there in terms of revenue, EPS, a lot of this is based on the decline that we've seen in oil prices over the year over year. And I think when you look at what we were expecting for numbers versus what they came in, it was right in line. And I think this is the big thing that investors are going to look at here tomorrow. Prairiesky is one of those names where you can just solidly rely on pretty steady growth quarter after quarter, year after year. And basically, when we look at what we're concerned about, and specifically oil production growth, we saw a 6% increase year over year, and with the reserves, that also matched at 6%. So it just shows you that you're seeing the growth in production and reserves up those 6%, which is important when you have a declining oil price environment.
Is that why the company decided to increase its dividend? Because that's obviously usually a sign of confidence in a company.
I think that's exactly it. If they were concerned, you wouldn't see that increase. I think the other thing, too, that we're balancing is the number of buybacks that the company is also doing. So in show of strength, you can see that dividend has been raised, every year since COVID. And also we're continuing to see more buybacks as the year progresses here as well.
Does anything you're seeing here in this latest earnings report change your opinion of Prairiesky?
It doesn't. And I think it just reinforces the fact that this is a name that investors can rely on for that steady growth here. And basically, it's a bit of a proxy on what you see for the basin. So despite that, we saw oil prices have a pretty good collapse over the last couple of years, Prairiesky has still seen royalty and third-party activity on its land continue to grow. So we've seen pretty much rigs drop in almost every major basin here in North America, but where we're still seeing growth on Prairiesky's land in the Clearwater and Mannville, those are the two areas that we're still seeing rig activity increase year over year. So for any investors who are looking for a proxy on how to play the Mannville and the multilateral technology, Prairiesky is showing once again with this quarter that this is a name that you can get that steady growth.
And Prairiesky's stock did hit a new high recently. What does that tell you about the company?
It just shows that investors are starting to pay attention. And when you look at where is their growth in this kind of commodity price environment, it's hard to find names that are showing as much profitability as we once did. And that's where royalty names still have that high margin. So you don't nearly see the revisions to cash flow under low commodity price environments. But at the same time, too, it's good to see that they're still seeing growth because the assets that underline these royalties are still seeing levels of, high levels of activity. And that's what we're always looking for in these reports is, are you still seeing new licenses? Is the company still seeing new rig activity? And the initial look shows that we are seeing that continue.
You touched on this, but with oil prices up around $60 to $65 a barrel, I'm wondering how Prairiesky compares to other companies maybe in the market with these prices.
Prairiesky won't have the torque like a lot of other names. As a royalty company, you just don't get that. But it's that name that we find a lot of investors just like to tuck away in their portfolio and can rely on the steady dividend, buybacks, and you're not going to get surprised by this name. So it doesn't have the torque that some other names do, but it's more for those investors who are looking for that steady, I guess you could say blue chip oil and gas company in their portfolio.
How are you feeling about the sector as a whole? We've been seeing so many things happening, right? Like crypto sell-off, rising precious metal prices. How are you feeling about the whole sector?
It's a good question. It's probably the number one question we get is how does this compare to the run-up that we've seen in other commodities and other sectors here. We've seen, the sector start to see some new interest, especially when commodity prices look like they're at cycle lows. And when you have the noise of oversupply, you're just not seeing commodity prices move lower on that. And I think it just really shows that, maybe oil demand is higher than we thought. OPEC is still keeping a firm eye on making sure they're not oversupply. And as a result, we're seeing the market start to price in higher oil prices, even though we haven't quite seen those higher oil prices here yet today. So it does show that the market is getting a little bit comfortable that we may have seen a bottom in the commodity. And it's one of the only sectors that hasn't moved up nearly as much as some of these other sectors that we've seen.
Okay, we will leave it there. That's Jeremy McCrae, Managing Director of Energy Research at BMO Capital Markets. Appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.